And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And the first flying weather graphic for Sunday morning. IFR, northern and eastern Bering Sea here, right down close to St. Paul Island, grazing southwestern Nunivak Island, and then sliding right on up into Togiak Bay. IFR for the North Slope and western Arctic coast. South of the mountains, though, good VFR all the way down till you get to the Alaska Range and some lower conditions, especially on the western range here. Probably IFR in the eastern slopes, and IFR, kind of a narrow band there, eastern Prince William Sound, and IFR here sliding up to southwest Kodiak Island, and some IFR for the eastern southeast coast. For the afternoon, IFR here, western Prince William Sound down the east side of the Kenai Peninsula, that may or may not make it into Resurrection Bay to some extent, but expect some VFR there for the Seward area, or I'm sorry, IFR for the Seward area. Otherwise, marginal VFR for the Panhandle and areas of marginal VFR, some VFR thrown in here across southern Alaska. But you can see solid VFR in the interior. Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound there, into the Chukchi Sea, marginal VFR from the Brooks Range. Crest of the mountains out to the Arctic coast, and mostly marginal over the Aleutians and the Bering. And for Monday morning, marginal VFR, Bering Sea and the Aleutians, small zone of IFR here around St. Matthew Island and south of St. Lawrence. Good IFR there for the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, but south of the mountains, VFR holds. Back to that IFR pattern here along the western central Alaska Range. And a bigger area of IFR now in the Gulf of Alaska, and that showing up more extensively over the northern and eastern southeast coast. And for the afternoon, IFR mostly along the coast here, but still a little bit up in the Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area, some IFR around Yakutat, and marginal for the southeast coast, or I'm sorry, the inside waters there down to Dixon Entrance, and areas of marginal VFR, south central Alaska, all the way out to the southwest coast here with VFR in the interior. Marginal VFR for the northern Kobuk-Koyukuk valleys across the central Brooks Range, but VFR for all of the Arctic coast and portions of the North Slope. And marginal VFR for the Bering Strait covering all of the Aleutians and Bering with some IFR over the northern Bering Sea, but staying off the coast. And for passes tomorrow, in the Brooks Range and the Tuvik and Adigan, both looking pretty marginal again. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, lower conditions moving in there, IFR, especially on the eastern entrances. Rainy, marginal VFR, lowest conditions on the east side, better to the west. Windy, go for a VFR day tomorrow. And Isabel, same forecast VFR, as is Montasta. Tanita starting out good, then thickening, lowering clouds throughout the day with that frontal system swinging up could push it down to marginal VFR on the cloud heights. And for Portage, IFR and Chilkoot and White, another marginal day there. Freezing levels about 4,000 feet here right through the central interior, and give or take that all the way down to about Kodiak Island there, 6,000 feet just south of the island, and around 4,000 feet for the Panhandle. Up to the north, 2,000 feet there right along the Brooks Range, so colder conditions to the north, and about 2,000 feet for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And icing with that big storm coming up in the front here, pushing a huge area, considerable moderate rime icing potential, I'll say, up in across all of southern Alaska, the Gulf here to about Yakutat, westward across the Yukon Delta, maybe reaching St. Lawrence Island. Another batch here around Nikolsky there, just southwest of Unmak Island. And from here going to the 33,000 foot wind flow chart. We've got northwest winds about 65 knots there near Eagle, with the strongest winds down across western Canada. And then with this big storm here coming northward and the other low dropping southward, 85 knot easterlies here across the northern Bering Sea, southwest 80 knots blowing in toward Kodiak Island. And at 9,000 feet, again, big low here over the southern Bering Sea. Counterclockwise flow around that, south 50 knots here over the southwest interior. East up to 60 knots in the northern Bering Sea, and then 50 to 65 knot winds out of the west, but that's south of the Aleutians. And a little breezy here across southern Alaska with light winds to the north, light winds for the Panhandle. And 9,000 feet, pretty light wind conditions, southeast coast up into the northern and eastern interior, all the way out to the Arctic coast with this front right through here coming up, bringing those strong winds in, 45 to 60 knots here, right across Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula area, and the southwest coast, turning more easterly up to 60 knots there around St. Matthew Island, southwest 35 knots for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, northwest 45 for the western Aleutians. And with those northwest winds out there, throwing some moderate turbulence there from Adak to about Kiska Island, improving toward Chimay-Attu. Possible moderate chop, considerable moderate turbulence, I should say, for the Alaska Peninsula. And then here for south central Alaska, especially Cook Inlet and Susitna Valley down to Fognak Island, across the west and southwest interior. Considerable moderate turbulence there, including St. Lawrence Island. And for the southeast coast and the central northern part of the state, nothing significant expected.